Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. This is Let's Have Renaissance, a podcast about literature and the arts. I am Ito Otini.
And I'm Makaya Otini, and today we're speaking with Robert Paterson. Robert is a composer, educator, and arts organizer. He's been supported by MacDowell, the Utah Arts Festival, the Aspen Music Festival, Copeland House, the American Composers Forum, the League of American Orchestras, New Music USA, and others. He and his wife, Victoria Paterson, co-founded both Mostly Modern projects, where he currently serves as artistic director, and Mostly Modern Ensemble. We're excited to be with him today.
Thank you for tuning in. We're excited that you're here. Why don't you also subscribe, like, comment, and share this episode with your friends?
And if you know anyone who wants to come on the podcast, please do send them our way. Also, if you haven't yet, sign up for our free newsletter where we share updates, resources, and opportunities. To support the podcast, you can make a one-time donation through our website or purchase a subscription to our blog where you'll find more premium content and resources at thedatekeepers.com. Thank you for being a part of our community.
Rob, thank you so much for joining us. We're so excited to have you. Can you please tell us about yourself?
Yeah, thank you. I'm grateful to be here. I live in New York City, and I also live in Saratoga Springs. In addition to being a composer, I co-founded and co-direct an organization called Mostly Modern Projects, which has 2 festivals and a couple record companies and some music groups. I'm kind of an oddball as a composer because I think a lot of composers take the academic route. And I guess for me, early on, I just realized that probably wasn't what I was going to do, even though I did it for a while. So one thing led to another, and I taught at a variety of festivals. And I was like, I don't really like the way some of these festivals were being organized. And I thought I could do my own version of this. Maybe I could try. So one thing led to another, and my wife Victoria, who's a violinist, we thought, why don't we start a festival? I think like anything in life, it just takes wanting to do it and having the belief that you can do it. And at first it seemed really scary, but then the more we got into it, it was doable. So we figured it out.
I love 2 things about what you said. First, that you're working with your wife and that you saw a problem, and instead of just complaining about it, you were like, you know what, I'm going to do something to change this. What were the issues you were having with the other festivals that you wanted to solve with yours?
Well, okay, so some of the other festivals, they didn't do really good archival recording. I don't expect any festival to immediately come out with professional recordings of their live performances if that's what they do. But I think for us, we realized that it's really important for young musicians, especially, we have a lot of young musicians at our festival, to have really usable, excellent quality archival recordings, both video and audio. So right away, that was one thing we wanted to try to solve. So we have multi-camera shoots and 4K, and we have really high quality audio with professional audio people. So that made a huge difference. Another goal was just, it's really a lot of little things, right? So you'd think it wouldn't be a big deal, but if you go to a festival and the food's horrible, that's not going to make you want to work hard and feel good. You're going to feel kind of miserable. So we're like, okay, let's at least base this at a place where we know the food's going to be good enough that people are like, okay, the food's actually really good. We're happy and getting a good deal for whatever they're paying. That's just kind of a practical issue. But musically, also, we wanted to make sure we were, and this may be a weird thing to say, but we were telling the truth. So for example, all the faculty that we advertise on our site are actually at the festival. There are some, I won't name them, but there are some festivals that list faculty and they're barely even there, or they're there for like a day and they call them faculty. Well, that's not really fair because you don't get to know them. So we have very few fly-by-night people. Like if somebody's only going to come in for a day, we call that person a lecturer. We make it very clear they're only there for a day and they're not teaching or interacting that much. And we have a few kind of superstars that come in like that. Like we had the concertmaster for the Metropolitan Opera, and he's extremely busy. So we just couldn't get him for longer than like 2 or 3 days. So we made that very clear. He's going to lecture, he'll meet with a few students for a master class, but that's all he could do. We try to be very open and honest about what we're offering.
Yeah, I don't know about you, but I came to start my business after being very much disappointed in the journalism world where I work. And I was like, okay, I'm going to build something that is worth fighting for, that is worth staying, nights and days. And, building it with your spouse is a different thing. And people ask us, how do you guys navigate being married, but also working together? Because those are 2 different worlds. And I'm like, it's not that hard. Can you share your experience?
I can definitely talk about that. So early on, it's interesting because Victoria and I work very closely together because she's the executive director and I'm the artistic director. And we call it like 2 cats. we're cuddly and we do things together. Like she might do a little of my job or I'll do a little of hers, but basically we offset each other, which I'm sure you two do as well. Like she's a great contractor. I'm horrible at that. I have no patience for that kind of stuff. She's just much better than me. I have a better sense of programming because I know a lot about contemporary classical music, which is what we do. And she knows quite a bit, but maybe not as much as I do because I obsess about it and focus on it all day long for my whole life. But, early on, we had a duo. I played percussion and we had a marimba violin duo. And it's not always perfect, right? So early on, we used to play concerts together when we were a lot younger. And we basically eventually fired each other because all we would do is bicker about like the laundry and we'd be practicing. And then she'd be like, did you actually send that letter? You said, why? Where are we talking about this? So we realized that there's a limit to maybe how much we can work together in certain capacities, but in this capacity, it works really well for us. We know a lot of musician couples that work together and a lot of artist couples. So it's not, obviously you know this, but it's not unheard of. But I do think that certain couples work well together and we're one of those couples. And we love it. It's fun. It can be nerve-wracking, right? When you're in bed and it's like 11 o'clock or something and you both are stewing about something and you're like, we should really just stop thinking about work, but you love it so much, right? But you also want, you know what I mean, right? But you also want to like take it easy and maybe just chill and read a book or go to bed or something, So I guess it's good, mostly good, I would say, like 80, 90%. And there's that 10% that's like, oh, like if we didn't work together, it might be a little easier to just relax a bit, But that's okay. It's a trade-off.
And also building it. What was that like, from funding it to, because a lot of people, when they think about someone starting a business, it's like, boiling an egg. It's not that easy. There's a lot of moving parts that are not visible to the public.
Yeah. Well, even what you're doing with this is incredibly, I'm very impressed by what you both do. Whenever you have to organize lots of moving parts, like you said, it's difficult. But I think, at least what I've learned is that if you have the capacity to do it, once you learn how to put something together and the different levels you need, the different steps. For example, we had a new music group called American Modern Ensemble. We still have it, although we renamed it this year Mostly Modern Ensemble. But we've had that for almost 20 years. And running that in New York City taught us a lot about how to organize stuff. And then we also had these record companies, so that taught us a lot. So by the time we got to running a festival, we're like, okay, we realize, for example, we need a website and it needs to be really good. And we need certain people working with us. And because we're a nonprofit, we need to raise money through grants or foundations or donors or whatever. And then it's almost like, if you play one sport, you probably could figure out another sport just because you know how sports works, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, look, don't get me wrong. These are all very different entities. Like a record company is very different than a festival. But in some ways, though, they're related, so it also takes not having a lot of fear. And that's really difficult. So we're both very courageous people. People, I guess in a good way, think we're a little crazy sometimes because we're very bold. We're go-getters to a point where it scares some of our colleagues because they're not used to that. They're like, how do you do all this? And how do you even find time to do anything? And how do you guys make these things work? And I'm like, well, you just have to put one foot in front of the other and just say you're going to do it. It's almost like, young people wouldn't know this, but Saturday Night Live had this funny skit once. This guy was called Richard Smalley, and he'd look at himself in the mirror and go, I'm good enough. I'm smart enough. And gosh darn it, people like me. You have to just like look at yourself in the mirror and say, I can do this. I can do it. And I'm just going to do it. And you have to will yourself to do it. And I really believe in that. I actually think you can manifest stuff by just saying you're going to do it, writing it down, making it a goal, and really focusing on those goals. That's the hard part because with life now, right? Distractions is to say, I'm going to brush all this 80% away and focus on the 20% and just focus on the 20% that I actually care about. And try to get rid of the other stuff that's a distraction. That's really hard. We have a kid too. He's 20 now, but when we were raising our son, that was also hard. Things get in the way sometimes.
I think for a while there was this conversation about how humanity, or at least in industrialized, quote, developed countries, humanity had kind of escaped the food chain and had escaped natural selection. And it seems to me that there still is some form of natural selection at work. It may or may not actually have to do with physical survival, but in terms of social survival, professional survival, there's an immense amount of pressure to be somebody who can focus, who can sustain focus. And there's so many things that make that hard. And then the stakes are really high too. And I think, I don't know what the timescale is going to look like, but I think if these trends keep up, we're going to see that the people who, and it's sort of always been this way, but I think it's intensifying, the people who succeed professionally, and I don't mean just like, holding down a 9-to-5 job, but I mean like actually building something new, are going to be people who have that capacity to push everything that's extraneous and irrelevant out of the way and just buckle down and focus long enough to make something happen. And that's not going to be very many people.
And there are a lot of people who talk about nonprofit versus for-profit. I don't care. However you are incorporated, what matters is that you have that idea and you put it together and you stay up. Sometimes you wake up at 2 a.m. and you have an idea. Sometimes I am like, okay, no, I have to go back to sleep. And by the morning, the idea is not as fresh. And I'm like so mad at myself. I'm like, nope, I shouldn't have done that. And I learned like, okay, now I have to get to work, 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. or 12 a.m. or whatever. And especially for those of us who start things in the field that they have no experience in. I came to writing with just my love for storytelling and my experience as a journalist. And of course, my life experience, the challenges and everything that I had to face. But I had no idea how to start a business in writing. And after 8 months, we got our work published in over 50 literary magazines all over the world because we built the right
Congratulations.
So, Thank you. But if you can take us back and share some stories about the challenges you faced.
Well, so I remember back when we started American Modern Ensemble and American Modern Recordings, and then this little boutique commercial record label called Lumiere Records, which, by the way, we've placed a whole bunch of tracks in commercial films. And that's how we made some money back in the day, like, Secret Life of Pets, Social Network, things like that. Anyway, so we started all that at the same time as we had our son, who was a baby. And I just remember we built 3 or 4 websites all at once. We had never built major websites before. We had, created a nonprofit, a 501c3. We had built this ensemble from scratch, and we're doing concerts in New York City like throughout the year and making albums. We made, I think, like 6 to 8 albums all at once in 1 year. We just did so much. And I remember that year being like, we were just utterly exhausted. But I was also like, it was fun, right? But also like, we're just dead. We felt dead. And then after that first year, it got a little easier. And so I think by the time we got to the festival, this may sound shocking, but it didn't seem that difficult. I was like, oh, we're just starting a festival. That's no big deal, which is crazy. It's an international festival. It's actually a lot of work. But it feels like, you know what it's like? It's like putting on 10 weddings all at once. That's what it feels like. It's that kind of organization because you're putting on 10 concerts and, 150 musicians from around the world every summer, lasts for 3 weeks, which doesn't seem like a long time, but it's 3 intense weeks of, hundreds of rehearsals and all these concerts and whatever. So I think that was one of the hardest moments of our careers, was setting all that up initially. And setting up a nonprofit is not for the faint of heart, with all the cumbersome steps you have to go through. But then again, the payoff when you actually do it is really lovely. You think we're bringing joy to people's lives.
Unfortunately, there are a lot of people who are corrupt, and they're making it so hard for those of us who want to do the right thing. I don't have the stats at the top of my head, but last year was reading how many LLCs in different states were found to be illegit. And it was like, oh my God, this is crazy. And the same thing with the nonprofit world. Like, people actually are not doing it for good. I only support nonprofits in the arts or some education, but I 100% don't support nonprofits in the human rights and whatever.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. I mean, mostly what I know about in my world is the arts. So
yeah, I was listening to something the other day, and I was so shocked that Haiti has over 10,000 human rights nonprofit organizations for that small, poor, broken country. And
That's
they
amazing.
get funding to quote unquote support people, and they don't do anything. And I personally think the big issue is that that sector is abused. And like your organization, who are doing actually real stuff, who are fighting, who are run by a husband and wife with a kid, and God knows what else you guys are fighting to overcome, because people wouldn't see what's behind the scenes, what's going on, with your life, your family. We've talked to people here on the podcast who have elderly parents they're taking care of, and a bunch of, things.
It's funny you mention that. For the last, up until about a year and a half, 2 years ago, for about 5 solid years, I was taking care of both of my parents who passed away, but they were, in their 80s. And you just said it. I mean, like, people, especially, I'm Gen X, so people in my generation and now up and coming millennials and people like that, taking care of your parents if they need help, and you have to divide up your time. And again, I'm not complaining. I loved every minute with my parents. I miss them deeply, but it was a lot of work because I was dealing with their finances and just, trying to help them because they started to need help. I will say along that line, this may be a tiny bit of a non sequitur, but kind of related. Lately, I've been thinking a lot about how I wish our society had more continuity. I feel like there's so much transience in everything we do, whether it's people moving constantly or, stores shutting down. There's such a throwaway mentality with so much. And I miss stability. And I'm not sure if it's just me Although I know some people feel the same way a little bit, but like I just start missing things from when I was growing up. I miss the locality of having a community that's generational. Sorry, I know this has nothing to do with art really, but I just think a lot about our community and
I mean,
how
it does.
yeah,
You can't be a good artist if you don't have good stories. And to have stories, you have to access human beings, you know?
exactly. Yeah.
Again, that's what we're trying to build, is like bringing people together.
Hmm.
I think art also is a way of trying to hold on to the essence of those things that we can't hold on to in life because they are so transient. And I don't think you're the only one feeling that. And I don't think it's a new thing either. I mean, Marcel Proust, The Remembrance of Things Past, it's the longest novel ever written. And the whole impetus for that novel, its exigence is to recapture and hold on to what Proust himself knew could not be brought back, could not be revived, was in the past. And the novel was his only, it was like a memorial to the life that was behind him. I'm sure that's true in music too. You're trying to capture something. By the time you are sitting down to compose, it's no longer there.
Yeah. Well, I think music is a sometimes narrative linear art, right? So you need time to experience it, just like you need time to read, if you're reading a novel or a story or poem or something. I think a lot about time, and I think a lot about form in what I do, and not just with the art itself, music, but also experience. So like back to the festival, we think a lot about the form of the festival and what do people experience when they get there? What are they experiencing when they're there? What's the aftermath? We were talking about a community, but also an experience that they're going to take with them. It's not just a one-time thing that just gets thrown away. It's something that if they love enough, they even come back. And a lot of people do, which is wonderful. I'll tell you another story. During the pandemic, there were a bunch of organizations similar to ours that kept going through Zoom and stuff like that. And what we decided to do is we shut down for 2 years, which was really frustrating because we had just started the festival. We were like 2 or 3 years in. So we were building momentum, but we were like, you know what? We just believe, if possible, when you have the option and the opportunity to have a live experience so people can be together in real human space. So we made a hard decision. We shut it down. We're like, nope, we believe in live. We're not going to do a Zoom festival. We almost felt like we had to restart after those 2 years. But I feel confident in our decision because we stuck to our beliefs about embracing a communal experience, a live experience. And I participated in a few of those just as a composer where they'd play my music. And some of it was moving. Like I had a string orchestra in Texas, these kids, and it was actually made me cry because there was 50 or 60 kids and they were all in their bedrooms and they were all playing remotely. One of my pieces called ICU, which is actually about my father in the hospital. It's a little bit of a sad piece. But anyway, they're all playing this piece together remotely all over this area of Texas at the same time. And it was incredibly moving, even though that was through Zoom. So that was an example of something that really, really worked. But, as you know, technology is amazing, like what we're doing right now. But sometimes technology can be a little janky. And so then you're like, oh, it doesn't quite feel right to do it like this yet. Maybe if we have holograms, right? So someday this will be like a holographic experience.
Yeah, unfortunately, we have another one coming up soon. But thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much. I'm really grateful.
Great to meet you, Rob. You have a great day.
Likewise. Okay.
Take care.
Take it easy. Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye.